At 2:17 a.m., the factory lights flickered, dimmed, and then surged back on with a low electrical groan that vibrated through the concrete floor. The sound crawled up Daniel Harper's spine and settled behind his eyes like a dull pressure. He stood alone at the security desk, fingers wrapped around a chipped mug of vending machine coffee that had gone cold minutes ago. The other guards were gone. Not on break. Not sick. Gone. Their lockers stood open, uniforms half pulled from hooks, as if they had fled in a hurry and never looked back. Daniel had noticed the signs earlier in the night. The way Mark wouldn't meet his eyes during shift change. The way Luis muttered a quick prayer under his breath and said, "You don't have to do this, man," before clocking out for the last time. The way the supervisor's voice trembled when he handed Daniel the clipboard and said the words no one wanted to say out loud. "You'll be alone tonight." Alone didn't scare Daniel. Silence didn't scare him either. What scared him was the envelope on his kitchen table at home, stamped final notice in red. What scared him was the landlord's voicemail that ended with, "I need the full amount by Friday." What scared him most was the image of his 6-year-old daughter, Lily, asleep under her faded dinosaur blanket, trusting him to keep the world from falling apart. That was why he'd taken the night job no one wanted. The factory sat at the edge of the industrial district like a forgotten ship run aground, 6 stories of steel and smoked glass, humming with power even when most of the city slept. Officially, it manufactured specialized components for medical devices. Unofficially, rumors clung to the place like oil stains. Equipment malfunctions. Sudden shutdowns. Guards quitting mid-shift without explanation. A supervisor once joked that the building didn't like strangers. No one laughed. Daniel remembered the interview clearly. The manager barely looked at his resume. She glanced at the gap in his employment history, at the line that read widowed, one dependent, and then slid a form across the desk. "Night shift," she said. "Immediate start. Higher pay. No benefits." "I'll take it," Daniel had replied without hesitation. She paused, studying him. "Most people don't last." Daniel had shrugged. "I just need it to last long enough." Now, standing in the fluorescent glow of the security office, he wondered how many men had said those exact words before him. The first alarm sounded at 2:23 a.m. It wasn't loud, just a soft chime, polite and almost apologetic. Daniel looked up at the monitor wall. Camera feeds showed empty corridors, motionless machines, long shadows stretching across polished floors. A small yellow icon blinked near the corner of one screen, Zone C, motion detected. Daniel frowned. Zone C housed old storage rooms and the sealed server wing. No one was supposed to be there. He adjusted his jacket, clipped the radio to his belt, and stepped into the corridor. His footsteps echoed too loudly, each one returning to him a second later, distorted. As he walked, he thought about Lily. About how she'd insisted on making her own dinner, peanut butter smeared unevenly on bread, because Dad works nights now. About how grown-up she sounded when she said it, and how it nearly broke him. He told himself this job was temporary. Just a bridge. Just long enough to breathe again. The corridor lights flickered as he passed under them, one by one, like reluctant witnesses. The motion alert stopped blinking. No footsteps. No voices. Just the steady mechanical heartbeat of the building. Zone C came into view, a wide metal door with a keypad and a faded warning sign, authorized personnel only. Daniel checked the keypad. The screen glowed faintly, untouched. He turned to leave, then heard it. A whisper of air. Not from the vents. From the door itself. He leaned closer and noticed something that made his stomach tighten. The door wasn't fully closed. It was open, just a crack, thin as a finger, spilling a faint blue light into the hall. "That's not right," Daniel murmured. Protocol said to report it and wait. Protocol also said not to enter restricted areas alone. Protocol had never paid Daniel's rent or kept Lily's school from calling about unpaid fees. He took a breath, pushed the door open, and stepped inside. The server wing was colder than the rest of the building, the air sharp and clean. Rows of black cabinets stretched into the distance, their tiny lights blinking in complex rhythms. The hum here was different, deeper, more focused, like the building was thinking. Daniel walked slowly, eyes scanning. Nothing appeared disturbed. No signs of forced entry. Then he saw the door at the far end. Unlike the others, it was new. Reinforced. Sealed with biometric locks. A status panel glowed green, and beneath it, a small screen displayed live data streams scrolling too fast to read. And above the screen was a name. Not a label. Not a code. A name. Daniel stopped breathing. The name belonged to a billionaire whose face appeared on magazine covers and financial channels. A man so private that journalists speculated whether he even left his penthouse anymore. The owner of half the technologies that ran the city. The kind of man who didn't put his name on things unless they mattered more than money. "What is this doing here?" Daniel whispered. The screen pulsed as if responding. Data surged. Red text flashed briefly before disappearing. Daniel wasn't a tech expert. He'd driven delivery trucks, stocked warehouses, worked construction until his hands ached. But he recognized danger when he saw it. The numbers weren't normal. The system was under strain, like something, or someone, was pulling at it from the inside. He glanced back toward the door, half expecting to see someone watching. The room was empty. Silent, except for the servers. He approached the terminal. A warning message blinked once, then resolved into a single line: external access attempt. Priority level Omega. Daniel swallowed. He remembered Mark's face. Luis's prayer. The lockers left open. "This is why they ran," he muttered. His radio crackled suddenly, making him jump. Static. No voice. He lifted it, tapped the side. Nothing but a hiss. He was alone in a building that felt very awake. For a moment, the temptation hit him hard. He could step back, log the incident vaguely, finish his shift, collect his pay, and never come back. Whatever this was, it involved people with power far beyond him. People who didn't need a single dad with a night badge poking around their secrets. He thought of Lily again. Of the way she looked at him when she thought he wasn't watching, as if he were stronger than anyone else in the world. Daniel straightened. "If I don't do something," he said quietly, "no one will." He reached out and touched the terminal. The screen reacted instantly, pulling up layers of data, alerts stacking on top of each other. Somewhere deep in the building, a low alarm began to pulse, not loud enough to alert the city, but enough to warn anyone listening that time was running out. Daniel didn't know it yet, but this moment, this choice made in the quiet hours when no one was supposed to see, was already being noticed. By someone who rarely slept. By someone who would, by morning, be standing at Daniel's door,